And Axl Rose is at the funeral, and the theatrical element that blew it for me, man. I was like, he's not just crying. He is Rocky 3, my trainer just died crying. He was blubbering at his wife's funeral, and I was just like, this all fucked my head up.
So he's in
and it's the reason.
So what you're saying is
it's the reason why I'm not a doctor today.
So what you're saying is that he is in oh my god, I can't believe Burgess Meredith just died.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Just got his ass kicked by Mr. T. You know, shit hitting the fan. They just give him a statue and he sucks.
I don't think there's anyone that was ever going to compare Axl Rose's crying, his acting, and compare it to Rocky.
Only I can do that.
So I, like the rest of the world in the late 80s, got into Guns N' Roses with Appetite for Destruction.
How could you not?
I honestly think it's one of the best hard rock albums of all time.
It's in the top 5.
It's so good, and it speaks for itself. The songwriting on it is great.
It's all killer, no filler.
Literally.
Like, there isn't a filler track on Appetite. It is rock and roll from the first note to the last decay of the symbol. It's rock and roll.
And that was like the late 80s. But literally like a year or two after that, I started getting into like punk rock, like big time. Mm-hmm. I got into like hardcore, like New York hardcore. I started my band. We were playing shows. And by the time you get to the early 90s, hard rock was music that I wasn't actively listening to anymore. I mean, I liked all the bands that I did like.
I was into Color Me Bad, personally.
It's up to you.
I want to sex you up.
Yeah.
Early 90s, rock is kind of got what they call a death rattle.
Well, it doesn't even matter because I wasn't listening to it. And of course...
You're in a different frame of mind.
And then, I got Guns N' Roses Lies, which was the EP that came out, and I was still into them. And then the Use Your Illusion albums came out. They went 1 and 2 in 1991.
1991. And the thing is, you had radio silence from Guns N' Roses. I mean, you had this big, huge band that kind of seemed like they came out of nowhere. And then it was Guns N' Roses' world for a while. I mean, you couldn't get away from that band. I heard Sweet Child of Mine probably for a year and a half.
Yeah, actually, not yet. When you just saying that makes me... Yeah, by the time you get to like the early 90s... I'm good with Guns N' Roses.
You're done.
But I'm not saying I didn't like him anymore. It's just like I was good. So when the Use Your Illusion albums came out, I didn't buy them, and I didn't really put much thought into them. And what solidified that for me was when MTV was still playing videos.
Right.
And I remember they were putting out videos for November Rain, Don't Cry. What's the last one? Estranged, and I'm like, what the hell is this shit?
That trilogy of videos was like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen.
That was beautiful for you.
Oh my god, you got to understand what it did to my brain when I saw those videos, because it's pretentious indulgence.
Yeah,
all I saw.
Absolutely.
Because here's the deal: these are all ballads, and we all know I got a soft spot for the ballads. And when Axl Rose writes a ballad, he love you long time. We're talking 10-minute.
Oh, they're long.
We're talking marathons here, and I love that.
You did.
You know, it wasn't like, because there's jam bands out there that'll play for they will musically masturbate for 17 minutes in front of you, and that's all it is. They're just jerking off. But for me, at 14, watching these, I'm like, this is like a saga, you know. I got into even though, you know, looking back at it now, it is all over the top. Those videos are so over the top. I mean, you go from Axl Rose jumping off of an oil tanker, swimming with dolphins, and then freaking Slash coming out of the ocean playing guitar. But for me, I was just like, woohoo! Yeah, you know?
And for me,
Axl Rose is in the freaking cemetery having a picnic with his hot model girlfriend. I'm like, I want to do all these things. I want to jump off an oil tanker.
Well, I had the exact opposite reaction to you because I'm like, I watch those videos and I'm like, well, looks like I'm good. I'm done with Guns N' Roses, and and then I really never gave Guns N' Roses that much thought anymore
because those videos turned you off.
They turned me off so much,
and it's unfortunate because I remember, for me personally, it was like Guns N' Roses. The Appetite for Destruction and Lies had happened. We listened, they played Patience for a year, and I was just like, I'm done with Guns N' Roses. But then I remember on radio, you didn't know of an album coming out, but they played Civil War. Civil War was on the radio a lot.
Yeah.
And I love that song. I thought that song, and you didn't have access to it unless it came on the radio when they played it. It wasn't like in heavy rotation. And I remember hearing that, and I was like, wow, this is great. And then they did a cover of Knocking on Heaven's Door, and I was okay with that. But no, the big breakout was when they did You Could Be Mine for Terminator 2.
Well, that was the only song that I liked.
And that was like and that was the first song that came out to promote the Use Your Illusion albums.
You're right. And I liked that song. I did.
And it was like, wow, they're back. And I was like going, holy shit, there's new people in the band? Who's this long hair guy playing piano? Who's the guy on drums? That's not Steve Adler. It was like, what's going on here? They're going to blow my mind. And they did. Because those videos, when they came out, and they released a whole bunch of videos. Because the thing about those albums, if you did listen to them and you did buy them, that was a bacchanalia of rock and roll. That was just rock overload. They had so many different types of music going on through those albums that it made my head spin. You had like blues rock, you had simple acoustic numbers with harmonica, you had the ballads that I adored. I love Don't Cry. I think that song was amazing, and that was one of the first songs they wrote as a band together. A lot of those songs were written before Appetite, when they were just like living in an apartment together.
I didn't know that.
But they turned them into all these, this great album. And a lot of people are like, do you like Use Your Illusion 1, Use Your Illusion 2? I don't think there was a real set plot with either one. I think they were just thrown together. But personally, Use Your Illusion 2, that has like the most songs that I like as a whole together. But you had Duff singing on songs. You had Izzy Stradlin singing on songs, even though he wasn't in the band anymore.
Yeah, was he in the band?
I want to say he started he was definitely there during the recordings. But I think something shit the bed between recordings and tour.
And making the videos.
At that point,
because he's not in the videos.
He's not in the videos. You had Gilby Clarke.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to those videos, man. Those videos sold it even more for me. For me personally. Yeah, I know a lot of everybody else was like, I'm checking out. I'm done.
So I'm not the only one who felt that way, then.
Oh, no. I know a lot of people.
Okay.
I don't know anybody who likes those videos except me.
Right.
I'm always the lone
man. All right, so it isn't like I'm the one who's crazy.
I'm always the lone guy here, sitting here going, I love November Rain. It really moved me, He got this beautiful wedding, and Slash is out playing in front of the church on his little guitar, and, then she fucking dies. And you're like, wait. No, I remember watching that video, and I was like, this is amazing. My mind is being blown. There's an orchestra, Axl's on the piano like a pirate. And I'm just like, fuck, this is, I can't take it. My brain can't take it. And then, Stephanie Seymour, Hot Bride, they French kiss at the altar. Slash does a solo, wedding, somebody spills some fucking wine, and then she's dead. Then you have the Estranged video. Now you understand, this trilogy was like, there was a movie, there was supposed to be like a plot to it all. I don't know what the hell that is. I don't give a shit. They got my money, and I'm good with it. But then Estranged, he's like in a house and he's weirded out. But then they're on tour. He's on tour with his band, and they're freaking playing in an amazing city, and there's models watching them, and when those models are watching the monitors of them playing, I was like, God, I want to do that. I want the models to look at me doing that. But then he's swimming with the dolphins. Slash is hovering down Sunset Boulevard playing his guitar. And yeah, I guess you kind of lose the plot there. But getting back to the music, it's really good music when you listen to it. You can tell there's a really good band there.
Well,
that killed it.
Well, this is the story that I want to say. And the reason why I wanted to do this video. So time goes on. When I got into the mid-90s, that's when I started getting more into like the garage rock punk.
Right.
rock and roll kind of stuff. One band that comes to my mind is the Super Suckers.
Yeah.
The Super Suckers, you know, they were definitely pulling elements from like rock and roll. Mm-hmm. So getting into them kind of got me to go back and start listening to like a lot of hard rock again. It came, you know, we're back in the beginning of the 90s. Like the last thing I would want to listen to is like Kicks, you know. But
close your eyes.
Yeah, but
another ballad. I love the
but you get
ballads.
it. But once I'm getting into like the later 90s and into the 2000s, it's like, okay, I started to go back to my roots, so to speak, and I started listening to hard rock more again. And somehow I acquired, or they were given to me. Someone was getting rid of their CD collection, and then I got the Use Your Illusion albums 1 and 2 because I didn't own them. I didn't buy them. I had no desire to buy these albums whatsoever, because everything you just said and how much you loved it all is all the reasons why I hated that shit.
And that's the reason why I really didn't have a lot of luck in bands, because
Guys, I want to write a song like Don't Cry in November Rain. I don't know if this is going to work out.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah, don't cry, don't call. I have these 2 CDs. I'm like, you know what? I should listen to them. I should at least listen to them just to hear it, you know. So I put in Use Your Illusion 1 in.
Right Next Door to Hell.
The first song comes on, Right Next Door to Hell. And I'm like, wow.
You hear that bass
This
line.
is great.
No, it's phenomenal.
And then you start going down
Dust and Bones.
the songs that actually rock.
Yeah, if you
Double Talk and Jive, Garden of Eden.
through all the songs I fast forwarded through because I wanted to get to Don't Cry.
But not me. I'm
alternate version.
I'm listening to these songs, and it's like some of them are actually
No, they're great.
they're kind of up, like kind of faster
There's
paced.
punk rock in there.
There's definitely
Coma.
elements. Yeah.
Listen to Coma. It's a 10-minute song, but that is punk rock, man. Get a laggy in a coma.
Even the songs on Use Illusion, like Get in the Ring. And,
oh yeah, and that was like the first diss track ever. You know, rappers are always dissing each other. I want to say Get in the Ring was the first major fuck you. I'm calling you out, you know. You know, Axl Rose is starting calling out all these like journalists that were, you know, shit talking his band, you know. I think he called out Bob Guccione Jr. and said, "Hey, get in the ring, I'll kick your ass." And Bob Guccione Jr., I believe, had like 9 years of fighting training, so I think Axl backed out of that one. He said, I'll get in the ring.
I think there's a lot of people. There have to have been a lot of people that checked out of Guns N' Roses around the same time that I did. Not necessarily that they checked out of Guns N' Roses, because everyone still loved Appetite.
That was one of the
Destruction.
biggest tours of that year.
I mean, like, Appetite is still great. Everyone still listens to that album. Everyone still talks about that album. But it was like, it's almost like the Use Your Illusion albums are kind of like the Kiss solo albums. Like, they came out, we all know they exist, but it's sort of like, okay.
And it's unfortunate because I think what happened, and you know, you mentioned the videos and the overindulgence of what was going on, and I think that did turn a lot of people off to the point where they're like, you know what, I'm good, and they didn't listen to the actual album. Not to mention, they put out a lot of videos. They didn't just do those.
Well, that's.
But
it brings it back to the idea of that. How important and influential MTV was at the time.
Oh, yeah, it was
because they played a lot of videos. So if you were a band, it was all about the videos that you were going to put out. It was like that was essentially putting out your single. Right. So this is what I propose, and this is what I thought in my mind. Imagine an alternate reality where instead of Guns N' Roses put out all the songs that you love, say like the first video they put out for Use Your Illusion is Right Next Door to Hell.
Right.
And you'd be like, damn.
They would have had a...
the next video is Get in the Ring.
Yeah.
I think there'd be a lot of us, including me, that would have been like, oh, hell yeah, Guns N' Roses still has it.
And then you probably would have lost me. You got to take... I would have been like, no, it just doesn't hit close to home with me anymore. Not true. A lot of those songs, they were so rocking, but you got to take into consideration this is 1991. What just happened?
Well, grunge became huge.
Yeah. That was like a nuclear bomb to rock and roll.
So do you think, just saying...
Or that old school...
So saying that, do you think what was going to happen with Guns N' Roses was going to happen anyway?
Yeah, I think they were definitely on, they're definitely heading to go off the rails because you got to think you have this great double album, but then you think of those videos, and it has already been recorded. Those videos were just kind of over the top bullshit, and everybody was like, whatever. And then what came after that? They did an album of covers.
Spaghetti Incident.
And you read the books. That's just like when everybody's like, I'm done. I can't do Axl Rose Land anymore. Even though...
Well, wasn't that...
Use Your Illusion was not like just Axl Rose's... Everybody had a part in that. Everybody was doing something. So it's kind of weird why those albums kind of get like dismissed a little bit to a point, because it's just like, no, everybody's kind of kicking ass on there.
Did they sell successfully?
Oh God, yeah. Those albums did well. They went multi-platinum.
Did they?
That was one of the biggest tours. They were on tour with Metallica. That was one of the hugest tours.
Oh, they were touring with those? Okay. That makes sense.
That was one of the hugest things that happened. I'll never forget that.
Metallica they were supporting the Black Album then,
They were doing the Black Album, and it was Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and I saw them with Motorhead opening. So it was just like, that's a show. But, yeah, it sold well. But then it was definitely headed for off the rails after that, because it was just, what do you do after this? They did the cover album, and that pretty much disbanded the group. I think the last song they recorded together from that lineup was Sympathy for the Devil.
Guns N' Roses would continue on, but in an entirely different form, with Buckethead and... I don't even know who the other guys in the band is. And then eventually
Bumblefoot,
the Chinese Democracy.
The Chinese Democracy
eventually did come out, but unfortunately...
It's not the Guns N' Roses. It's not Appetite for Destruction. Guns N' Roses. That's the Axl Rose show. And I like Chinese Democracy, personally. I liked it. I thought it was great.
No, it's not bad, but it's not...
It's not
if you're looking for they're out to get me and Mr. Brownstone,
no.
You ain't going to get on the Chinese Democracy. I will say this. And kind of bringing this all together. Again, the reasons why I wanted to do this album is that for a long time, and we're talking decades, I completely wrote off the Use Your Illusion albums. But I have to admit that even though I'm not a fan of the ballads, I can admit and acknowledge that these are well-written songs.
Oh, God.
That there is a lot of different types of music that is played on those two albums. Just like you said, you get a little bit of punk, you get a little bit of country, you get a little bit of hard rock, you got your ballads, you got your pianos, you got whatever. And I think it kind of did take Guns N' Roses to a new or a different level.
Yeah. They went to like the level of like Queen. They're the guys that get to go into the Wonka factory, man, while the rest of us assholes are out by the gate with our little flags going, dee, 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 dee. They're in there making the real magic happen, and and then they let their egos fuck it all up, and then you get solo albums.
And then the Oompa Loompas come out.
What do you get when your head is so big? See how I just turn rock and roll into shit with Oompa Loompas and Willie? Who would go from Axl Rose to the Willy Wonka fucking movie?
You. Guns N' Roses is writing "Don't Cry."
I'm Salt.
The Guns N' Roses is writing "Don't Cry," and as they're writing it, Willy Wonka's like, "Stop! Don't come back."
You wrote "Estranged." You both made videos that cost us millions, so you get nothing. You lose.
Good day, sir.